Hello there, this is Richard Digance. Welcome to A Week of Strength, a play on words, but apt because every week I will be coming to you to help you with 10 minutes of mindfulness. It's a recommendation from the NHS, 10 minutes just to help the body and mind cope. We're now into the 4th week of 52 all the way through the year, and so we're approaching the end of January. And although the series is called Week of Strength, this week's story is more of wealth of poverty, the wealth of poverty, because it's poverty that made people strive, as particularly back in the 18th century, which is where we're going now. I want you to come with me. We're going to the west coast of Scotland, a ragged part of Great Britain that is weather-beaten by the Atlantic Ocean. It's beautiful, it's unspoiled. And on that west coast was born the national poet of Scotland, one certain Robert Burns. Just look at the countryside that inspired this great poet. Robert Burns came from a farming family. In its early stages, a failed farming family. So much so that although Burns tried his hand at farming, he didn't do too well. It made him quite weak and gave him a premature stoop, apparently. His father moved from farm to farm, crofting as they called it back then. He never came good for many years, so much so that Robert Burns decided to emigrate. He decided to emigrate to Jamaica. But just before he went, his bags were packed. He found literary success. His book, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect, finally came good. He changed his mind, luckily for us, and he never went to Jamaica. Instead of that, on the 27th of November 1786, he travelled from the west coast all the way across Scotland to the eastern side, to Edinburgh, where all the literary figures of the time resided. And you know what? He went by pony. The journey was 83 miles. Yes, and he went by pony. Incredible. So now we have moved from the ragged cliff tops, inlets of West Scotland to Edinburgh, beautiful, regal Edinburgh. Now there is a place, the castle, beautiful, reaching up into the sky, a huge inspiration to our writers of the time. And it was in Edinburgh that he befriended a certain Walter Scott. And by hanging out with such luminaries as Scott, he became recognised himself as a literary figure. His book, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect, was often running. But you know what he did? He sold the copyright. Well, he needed the money. He was a struggling author. He sold the copyright for £21,000. Needs must, I suppose. It's not a lot of money, is it, for something that was to become a literary institution, if you like. But yeah, £21,000, and he waved it goodbye. Needs must, of course. So many poets and authors suffer poverty, but it is that skill that brings the wealth of poverty. It happened to Robert Burns. When we think of Burns, we think of, well, yes, a standard poet, if you like. You see a painting of him and you expect to see an old man, experience and skill, maturity. No. Robert Burns sadly died at the very young age of 37. So, 25th of January, 1759. Robert Burns. But the 25th of Jan also heralds another birthday, worlds apart. That's of a certain Virginia Woolf. And to chronicle Virginia Woolf's existence, life, progress, we move from Scotland way, way down to London. London then was a bustling, fairly middle-class area where Virginia Woolf came from, Kensington. Now, I mention Virginia Woolf not purely because it's her birthday this week, 1882 by the way, but I think she may well have been one of the original founders of mindfulness. She had a dreadful time. She suffered from mental health issues, eventually committing suicide. She described her works as thus: streams of consciousness. Yeah, words that took her away from that dreadful existence. Things improved for her. She married and became the co-founder of the Bloomsbury Group. Oh yes, the famous Bloomsbury Group, a long, long way from the lifestyles of Kensington, let me tell you. It was a bohemian lifestyle. She enjoyed it with her husband, and together in 1917, they founded Hogarth Press. It was the publisher that published most of her work. So if you like, I look at Virginia Woolf as a scribbling suffragette. She carried a torch for the feminist movement, not by protest and marching, but within her words. Isn't that incredible to think of the two sharing a birthday? The poverty of Robert Burns and the middle-class wealth of the Woolf family. And yet we link them together as two of our most important literary characters. And I say characters because it was their character that they put into words, allowed people like you and I to think. And thinking helps to chill, and chill is what mindfulness is all about. Wedged between the two, between Robert Burns, amazing this, and Virginia Woolf, is a certain John Logie Baird. 1926, on the 27th of January, he demonstrated his new invention. Scottish, but a long, long way from Burns, I hasten to add, because he demonstrated in London the first ever television. Makes you think, doesn't it? I'd rather read a book anytime. So happy birthday, Burns and Virginia Woolf. Speak to you next week.